welcome back to another episode of Sarver's RC. Today we are going to be doing some dress up of your wires. I had ordered these Hyperflow fans, came with this nice wire sheathing. The people over at Hyperflow were nice enough to send me the link to the exact sheathing that they used. So we're going to dress up the power wires to the ESC. The motor wires I checked, and the diameter that I ordered just does not want to go over those bullet plugs, and I really don't want to cut them off and solder them back on. So I'm going to be ordering some larger sheathing to go over the motor wires. So it might not be a video on that, but I'm going to show you how to dress these up, and then we're going to wire and solder a QS8 male connector onto them to go with the dongles that I got, so you can run whatever batteries you want. Choose your wire gauge and everything from the company on eBay. Depending on how long this runs, I'm trying to keep these videos manageable, guys. That way, you know, you're not watching some long drawn out video with multiple steps. So depending on the duration, I'm already thinking I'm probably going to do the dress up and go ahead and cut that off, and then do another video with soldering tips. Most you RC guys, you've done tons of soldering. I get it. This will be for the folks that haven't done it and want to see that process. So we'll go ahead and get started with this. The first thing, and I've honestly never done this, guys. This is just general how-to knowledge, I guess, general mechanic knowledge of how I think I should do it. We'll see if we run into some problems. So hopefully I'll work out all the kinks for you on camera, and you guys can laugh at me later and learn from my mistakes. So my first thought is I'm gonna lay these into the connector. Actually, since one's black, I have a silver Sharpie, black Sharpie for red and silver for the other. I'm gonna mark how far these wires need to lay into this connector, so that way I don't have my sheathing running too far to where it's at the point where you need to strip the wire. So go ahead and silver Sharpie the black wire. Just going to go ahead and essentially color the whole piece of how far it needs to go. So your sheathing does not need to go up past there. And again, guys, you don't need to do this sheathing. I just think it really dresses your project up, gives it that custom look, a little bit extra. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Marked the black wire with silver Sharpie. Go ahead and do the red wire here with the black. These QS8 connectors, they're marked positive and negative. So these seem super high quality. Takes this 8 gauge wire and larger, I believe, 300 amp connection. So I like the pigtail idea. Some people say connectors are going to drop your voltage and whatnot, but just gives you the ability to run whatever batteries you want. Not buy batteries, solder connections onto batteries and everything else like that. Just you have a QS8 male, and you can make or buy the pigtails of whatever connector you want to run. All right, so we got those marked up. With the way that these wires go so far down, I'm just going to run the sheathing all the way down. I'm not going to worry about heat shrink and everything, trying to get it down in there, heating this up, and possibly melting any electronics there. So I'm hoping with a combination of electrical tape and heat shrink on this end, it'll keep it in place. It might bunch up, move around. I may throw a tiny little zip tie as close as I can down here to keep it from moving, but go ahead and start by just running the sheathing over the wire here. Actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and just strip this first. Grab some wire strippers. I've got a couple different pairs of wire strippers here. I'm going to go ahead and try these, even though it doesn't have the gauge I necessarily need on here. So just kind of eyeball where I need to go here, spin it around is my method since I don't have an actual spot for 8-gauge wire. 8-gauge is pretty large for your normal household strippers. And see if we cut it enough. It looks like we did. Alright, so got that one exposed. We're going to do the same thing on the negative wire here. Just grip it and spin the cutters around to try to get a solid cut through the sheathing here. Alright, so got those exposed. And we'll run your sheathing on here. This stuff expands really well. I believe this is 1/4 inch and expands, I think, double its size or larger, so really good for this. And honestly, it'd be good for the motor wires too, just with that bullet plug on there. Just is so large, it doesn't want to go over there, and I don't want to fray it and have it look like crap. So we're going to work this sheathing down, and helps if you kind of grip it and push. That way it expands and then gives you room to work it down. So my plan is to work it past these little capacitor packs all the way into the ESC housing. Try to get it in there as clean as possible. May take a little work to get it all worked in there and not bunched up. You could always pull back. So like how I got it worked in there and it was a little bunched up, you could pull back and it essentially cinches it all up on here. If you stretch it back this way, it'll give you a nice tight fit. So and go ahead and clip it off at the end of the wire here. And we will stuff really grips on there once you've tightened it, if you want to call it tightening. So I think I'm just gonna see about trying to, I guess, cut it just like I would strip a wire. So my plan is to get it a little bit past the actual red wire housing, and then I'm gonna electrical tape it and heat shrink it so it should stay and not want to move at all. Although looking at this stuff, I mean, it holds. Once you kind of do that whole pull it back and pull it tight trick, this stuff grips. Like I said, guys, I'm learning as I'm showing you, so sorry if it's taking a little bit of time here, but doing the best we can. honestly, I like to have as many tools available to me as possible. You start doing something with what you think would work best and then realize something else would be better. So we got straight snips, wire snips, scissors, the whole nine here. It's just better to be prepared. And I can already tell you by the duration of what it's taken me to do this, I'm going to cut the soldering into a different video. Just a tad bit of heat to melt the end of those so they don't fray. All right, and we'll grab the electrical tape. I think I'm honestly going to cut this in half. I just want to grip the end of the wire sheathing. So depending on what width of electrical tape you have, and again, you may think of a way to do this completely different than I'm doing that. So feel free to improvise, do what works best for you. I'm just trying to show you guys the basics here. Of what I think is going to work. What I think will work and what actually works. Maybe two completely different things. So I'm going to try to wrap this as tight as possible. Get it as clean as I possibly can. We have that all electrical taped up. We're going to do the other side. There's what it looks like dressed up compared to just normal wire. Looks super cool. So got that taped up, and what we're going to do is once the other side's done, we will essentially throw your heat shrink on both sides, as well as your wire cover. Slip that over. So that way, once you're all soldered up, you can slide everything up and make all your connections. So make sure you do that, or else you're going to get caught where, all of a sudden your stuff is, you might have to unsolder and all that, and you don't want that. So you're going to expand this by pushing it back. That's the easiest way to do it. Electrical tape. And we'll work that down. So the easiest way is if you push and expand this way and then slide your hands down, it will just slide that whole sheathing down to get it where you want it to go. And like I said, that method of once you get it all in there and it starts to look like it's bunched up, if you essentially pull back the other way, it's going to tighten up on your wire and give you that look that you are going for. So I said, you'll just slide it back like that. Now you got a nice tight fit. Feel out the end of your wire and snip your sheathing. Set that to the side and try this method again. Go back to the scissors. Now I got that peeled back. Try to clean this up as much as possible. Sorry guys, so that Bakersfield, California heat wants to keep shutting down the GoPro sitting out here in the shop office, the film room, just getting too hot. So might have to start and stop this a little bit, but we'll get her done. So you're gonna, once you got it all trimmed up, you're gonna wrap your electrical tape to keep everything in place, nice and tight. Keep everything clean looking. And like I said, guys, that's where, you know, it may look a little frayed the way I did it with using the scissors, but once it's all done, it looks super clean. Gonna do the sensor wire as well. I won't put you guys through the pain of watching that. We'll try to wrap this one up. We're gonna go ahead and trim up some heat shrink tubing. So make that nice and clean looking. Go a little bit farther than the electrical tape. Snip that. Match that length up. Go ahead and do another cut. Go ahead and run this sheath over this as well. Throw on your heat shrink tubing. You could choose to use a heat gun, whatever you want. I'm gonna go with just a old school Bic stick lighter so I can control the heat a little bit more. The heat gun I have is a pretty big industrial Mac one, so just I don't want to start melting my wire cover and everything else. Looks like this heat shrink might even, honest to God, be a little small. Huh. Let's see, I got some other stuff here. See if this is big enough. Will that fit over it, or is this the same diameter? Looks to be the same diameter. Maybe it's just a little easier to slide with it being longer. Get that, I guess, worked down here. Problem is now we're working our tape job down. Get this on here. The longer tube piece will it feed on a little better. Might have to pick up some longer heat shrink or just run it with the electrical tape. We'll see. Anyways, guys, we'll go ahead and cut it off there. I don't need to drag you out. You get the gist. Like to put some heat shrink over this, a little longer than my electrical tape, just to shrink everything up and have it look nice and clean. That way we could basically have that all tight, and your wire sheath is going to slide up and over your QS8 connector that's going to go on and soldered like this. That way just everything looks super clean, super professional, keep your rig looking right. So that is the plan. As always, guys, please like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to drop this into the playlist for this whole XRT build. Yeah, so follow along, see what happens. Some of this stuff I'll have to clean up, maybe run down to AutoZone or something and get a little bit bigger heat shrink, as well as order up some larger wire sheath for these big old bullets on the 800 kV, so I can get it over that and have everything looking nice and clean, all matching. So yeah, follow along for that. Thank you, guys.